As the holder of 6 consulships, and the winner of 2 foreign wars, Gaius Marius had more accolades and honors than any man alive. Despite his great achievements, his low birth still meant that men of patrician status were more than willing to let him fade silently into obscurity as he advanced into old age. They were content for Marius to become merely a legendary blip in Rome's long history. But, for reasons we do not understand, Marius chose to ally himself with plebeian tribune, Publius Sulpicius Rufus. If the sources are to be believed, it is because Rufus had incurred a tremendous amount of debt running for offices he could ill afford, and Marius was willing to pay off those debts in return for his services as tribune. Without an active tribune of the plebs, Marius would have found himself politically impotent and, as the previous 10 years had shown, Marius had held little to no power since the death of Saturninus. It's also possible that the two men had shared interests in 88 BC, and simply saw one another as the best way to achieve their mutual goals. By this time, Gaius Marius was almost 70 years of age. We are also given reason to believe his mental faculties may have been in decline, and even the possibility that he had suffered from a stroke. With Marius appearing old and possibly inept, Rufus most likely felt he would be the senior partner in their new venture. How could using the third founder of Rome to his own advantage not be an appealing prospect for an ambitious man like Rufus? Cicero tells us that Rufus's decision to ally with Marius was sudden, and that the decision stunned his contemporaries. They were appalled that Rufus would side with a low-born upstart who, in their minds, was always grasping at power. Rufus's contemporaries feared Marius, who already had too many accolades for a single man, would become influential with the people again, amassing to himself all the power that was meant to be shared among Rome's politicians. Whatever the reason, by siding with Marius, Rufus outraged most of his fellow elites. Because Lucius Cornelius Sulla had been returned first in the voting polls for the 88 BC consular election, he was the senior consul. This meant that supreme command of the war against Mithridates devolved upon Sulla. Unfortunately, Marius, who had been outshone by Sulla during the social war, itched to revive his own ambitions. As he had once done to Metellus Numidicus, Marius used his tribune of the plebs, Rufus, to call an assembly of the people. Rufus asked them to strip the sitting consul, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, of his command against Mithridates and give it, instead, to Gaius Marius. What Marius's motives were for this action, we can only guess. It may have been retribution against Sulla for having single-handedly captured King Jugurtha all those years ago, casting a shadow of suspicion over Marius's victory. Or, Marius might have been angry at Sulla for allowing King Bocchus of Mauritania to gift Rome a trophy which contradicted the official version of Numidia's defeat. Another possibility is that Marius was simply jealous that Sulla had not only outshone him during the social war, but had even been sent to rescue him. It's also possible that Marius's motives were nothing more than ambition which knew no bounds. When Marius had used his first tribune of the plebs, Manlius Mancinus, to strip Metellus Numidicus of command in Numidia, Gaius Marius was at least consul, and the argument was over which consul was the more competent commander. But now, Marius was only a private citizen in the waning years of his life. The Senate made all decisions when it came to war details, and Rufus's action was far more outrageous to them than simply using the assembly of the people to pass controversial legislation. Now the people were handing out armies to private citizens simply because they were popular. Once again, the Senate felt its authority and position usurped by another tribune of the plebs in the pay of Gaius Marius. To add insult to injury, Marius and Rufus also began legislation which would spread the mass of newly enfranchised Italian Roman citizens evenly across all the voting blocks. This action guaranteed each voting block would be flooded with an overwhelming majority of citizens grateful to the populares, and completely suborn the entire election process. No optimati would ever be elected to office again. The Senate quickly passed a justitum. A justitum was a decree that all public business cease, and all legislation passed be dismissed and forgotten. Unfortunately, the Senate was forced to withdraw their justitum after Marius and Rufus employed large numbers of street gangs to intimidate, beat, and even kill those who opposed them. By completely alienating the Senate through the use of riots and street violence, Publius Sulpicius Rufus and Gaius Marius sealed their fates. At the town of Nola, where he had journeyed to meet his troops, Lucius Cornelius Sulla was notified of the removal of his command by the plebeian assembly. Rather than ceding his command to Marius, whom he knew was only a private citizen, Sulla chose to defend the Mos Maiorum, an authority of the Senate, over the will of a people he considered too blind and stupid to see that their hero, Marius, was now old, feeble, and wantonly ambitious. As a popular commander who had earned the loyalty of his troops, Sulla made a decision that was completely unexpected, as well as unprecedented. Instead of ignoring the decree, and shipping his legions out to the east, Sulla turned his army inland and began a slow and deliberate march towards Rome in the name of restoring order. The Senate was equally horrified by this breach of protocol, and blasphemy against Rome's gods. They tried their best to reason with Sulla, sending emissaries to plead with Sulla to cease his slow march inland. But Sulla had an army at his back that knew if Marius gained command of the war against Mithridates, as Sulla's men, they would be left in Italy, losing every opportunity that war in such a rich province offered to common soldiers. Sulla, supporting his legal position, as well as the interests of his men, continued his march. Marius, who in his wildest dreams never imagined anyone would have the arrogance to march on Rome, was unprepared to defend the city. He attempted to throw together a polyglot army of slaves, freedmen, and gladiators, but against battle-hardened veterans fresh off the social war, they proved useless. The septuagenarian general, Marius, along with his son Marius the Younger, and a few other supporters, managed to escape the city. Unfortunately, Publius Sulpicius Rufus was not quite as cunning as his mentor. He was found hiding in a villa at Laurentum. Rufus was immediately executed by Sulla's men, and his head was sent back to Rome where Sulla displayed it on a spike in the Forum Romanum. Calling the Senate to order, Sulla also arranged for most of Rufus's laws to be annulled. For someone who never reached beyond tribune of the plebs, and whose name is easily overlooked in this period of Roman history, Publius Sulpicius Rufus was potentially one of the most important men of his day. Not only did his actions help to bring the social war to a close, but his Marian partisanship sparked the first of many generals' march on Rome, a long civil war between the Optimates and the Populares, the ultimate dismantling of the Roman Republic, the rise of dictators, and ultimately condemned the common people of Rome to hundreds of years living in a totalitarian police state. This concludes the setting of the stage onto which the young Julius Caesar was thrust. Stay tuned for the next section, showing how Caesar, at a young age, was forced to fight for his very life in a city devastated by the horrors of civil war and political murder. Thank you for watching.